So you've seen it. Series S is better with a gaming monitor than a TV. Let's take that apart a little bit and chat about it. First, let me get rid of this. All right, so what is the biggest difference between a TV and a monitor? Well, let's start with the monitor. Monitors are almost always gonna be smaller than TVs. Two, they're almost always also gonna have less vibrant colors. Not that that's always the case, but you can expect the vibrancy to be much less. You're also going to have a lower resolution. Most monitors for gamers aren't even 4K. Not that they can't achieve it, but that's not really what people are getting. So then you think to yourself, well then why would you get a sub 4K monitor that's smaller, less vibrant, and just seems worse? Well, for one very specific thing. Refresh rate. So let's talk about something like the Xbox Series S, which pairs beautifully with a gaming monitor. And so with the Xbox Series S, you have something called upscaling. When you're looking at a TV, you look at the image and you're like, wow, this looks pretty good. But as you get closer, you see, I understand what's going on here. The image itself is being stretched, and as I get closer to that TV, it might seem a little blurry. I have a physical example. This right here is a beautiful picture of my daughter. Pretty cute, right? She's sitting there laughing, looking pretty good. I have that same picture blown up and made into a mosaic right here. Looks similar, right? But as you get closer to the image, you can notice something. Well, it's made out of Legos, but also it's very pixelated. And that's what often is the complaint when it comes to something like the Series S, that when you put it on a 4K TV, you're gonna see a similar kind of phenomenon, pixelation. That's not always the case because technology is much more sophisticated than that, and it doesn't look like that. In fact, it looks great. People who are naysayers lean into that one fact and oftentimes don't really have the experience to back it up. But I will say this, there's truth to it. And so when you have something that doesn't have true native 4K and you put it on a 4K TV, you might see some imperfections. I don't think that with the Series S we're seeing that all that much because most games don't output a full true 4K image. And that's just because of limitations in optimization, because of last generation, but that's a different conversation for a different time. So then again, why would you get a smaller display with less resolution? Well, that frame rate is a huge deal, especially for someone who finds competitive gaming to be something that's more up their alley. People who play Call of Duty or Apex Legends or really need to work on their reaction time, Rocket League, something along those lines. Now that isn't the only case in which high frame rates are important. Heck, there are plenty of games where high frame rates just feel nice. A locked 60 frames per second actually is the preferable thing, and most monitors, including my two 4K monitors that I have, both by Anakin, one a mini LED, review coming soon, and one just a standard display, have a 60Hz panel with just different types of lighting elements. I don't think that taking this console and saying it needs to be on a monitor is necessarily the right play here. What I think is the more appropriate way of approaching it is, how do you play video games? Do you prefer to sit down on a couch and get after it and just kind of chill while you're playing Halo, do the campaign, or maybe you're sitting there with some buddies, you're hitting each other and you're going split screen? Is that something you're into? Are you playing a single player game such as Plague Tale Requiem or another one, maybe even Gunk, a really great underrated game, I believe? Or you're just going through something super fun such as Shredder's Revenge, all Game Pass titles that you can play with your Game Pass Ultimate subscription. That's a great option, right? TVs work for that. There's really no importance. TVs do introduce a little bit of input lag, but that really has been minimized over the years, with game mode being pretty much on most televisions that you purchase now. Well then what about the display? I personally play on a 4K monitor. My 4K monitor has been provided to me by multiple companies, and if I was to go out and purchase a monitor myself, I might not go for 4K. I might actually go for 1440p with high dynamic range and a higher refresh rate. My 4K monitor being 60 frames per second because the requirements necessary to get 4K and a high refresh rate require something called HDMI 2.1, which ends up costing a lot more money and componentry on the back of that panel. The combination of the two just isn't as prevalent now. But I do play primarily on a monitor. I like it. I like the feeling of being inside my office. I like the feeling of being here in this cozy space, but I also stream. This is my job, and this kind of environment is something I've grown very used to. But if it wasn't for this job, I might find myself sitting on the couch playing Ratchet and Clank over the weekends and maybe getting after God of War Ragnarok on my PS5. Heck, even playing the new Pokemon game. Well, maybe not that in docked mode because they're still got some problems, but Mario Kart, or even going through Breath of the Wild again on a nice big TV. It really just comes down to, what are you playing? I think that the conclusion of this game console requires a monitor in order for it to be usable is just plain wrong. I really think it comes down to, how do you play? Because I can make the monitor argument for people on PlayStation 5. Heck, I can make the monitor argument for people on Nintendo Switches, because the Nintendo Switch doesn't often upscale well. It needs a little bit smaller of a space. If I was to recommend which way to play, I'd say, well, look into monitors. I think they're really awesome solutions right now, and they're really inexpensive. The form factor's nice, and often sitting at a desk, you don't need anything more than 28 inches anyway, so you can save quite a few dollars. Go ahead and check it out. If you have any other questions, ask them below. And as always, you can check out this playlist here. I have more stuff about the Xbox Series S, but most of all, happy gaming.